All right. So this is cool. Yay! Can you grab a few validators here or something? So I'm actually hoping to get some. Yeah. Cool. So to start this talk, yesterday Jesse asked me if I could fill in for the talk. She offered me 4, and there wasn't time. So yesterday morning, and so I'm preparing a paper. It's kind of a draft paper, some ideas. Friends, so we could talk out of it to get feedback. So part of it is to prepare some ideas we have and some critiques, and the other is to get feedback from people. So I'm not going to claim a fully thought out, fully defined answer, but it's a sketch of a solution, some argumentation, some understanding, and a sketch of a solution that could definitely use refinement and feedback on it. So that's my disclaimer in the beginning. So I would like active audience participation, especially at the end. So even if you're small, there's like some feedback here. So proof of engagement is the name of the talk, Taming proof of stake. What we want basically is for a lot of blockchains, you have fair rewards for the validators. They all are getting paid enough to pay their costs. A strong, stable, secure chain, and active participation. Cosmos has a strong chain active participation. There's a lot of debate whether the rewards are fair enough. Many validators claim they're making losses and losing money. They can't afford to pay anything. So that's not sustainable initially, especially as you try to get more and more chains on. Come in. Okay, so we are looking into those goals. So why do we look at the chain rewards consensus? So if we could build a new one, how would we pay for the validators? We developed a lightweight paper on this, and so there's a paper, draft paper, it goes in, explaining a lot more of this concepts. But the goal was is to say the current system works for Cosmos with a large market cap, more or less. It's some trouble in the validators, there's discussions on how to refine it, and especially if you're a smaller chain with much smaller market cap, how can you pay for that? If you have 20 million market cap instead of 1.5 billion, how are your block rewards ever going to pay for a validator run on your node? So the models here basically is proof of authority, which you probably know is pretty simple. You post a bunch of people with their reputation, we sign on these 5 people, can run the chain. Easy. But everyone says it's centralized, and it's only really used for corporate chains. Then proof of work was out there. We don't want that anymore. Proof of stake is like proof of work, basically. But instead of using CPU cycles, we use scarce tokens. We use scarcity and someone else to have scarcity. So we assume that tokens are as scarce a resource as ASIC, which is kind of true, but there are some parallels which are a little faulty there. That tokens are much more fungible than ASIC and GPU wraps. Delegate proof of stake. The problem also was the proof of stake was that only a small portion of people had enough stake to do it. So the delegate proof of stake allowed a larger pool to go into it. Try to open up to expand the participation. And there's also work lock, which is interesting. That they kind of hold an escrow and you have to prove to get money out of it. I looked into it a bit. It could be used for some things. It's a kind of a way of getting proof of authority in a way, but putting money down, putting something down, putting it at stake, putting escrow in there and saying, okay, you have to put this down, and then you're allowed to do something else. You get back later. But it's kind of like proof of stake, except that there's different formulas, more or less. But if we look at the current landscape of Cosmos, we see the distribution is this. Basically, we have this is a simple curve. I took this curve here is basically the 80-20 rule, which is a Houdini. Someone said that this is actually it's a Pareto distribution with a 1.6 alpha, 1.16, and someone said in Alice it's actually 2 in Cosmos. It's really much steeper than this. This is a typical 80-20 rule curve, right? I took a standard one, and they actually analyzed Cosmos data and said it's actually much steeper than this. So you see this, the cost more or less flat for a validator, but the rewards distribute like this. So clearly, most of them, these people are losing money. This is how the tail is, right? These people are making money if it's distributed this way. So it's not very sustainable in this way. There's clearly an issue here. You can assume that maybe the cost goes down for lower validators. It's a slightly linear slope, a slightly downward slope here. Maybe that extends a little bit. But it's pretty much unstable with the distribution of steep. And imagine it's actually 3 times steeper. So it's even less of them that are able to pay. what I did, the first thought was try to level this out. How do you level this out? So I was looking at different functions and playing around for a while. How would level this out? So there's a lot of ideas of capping validators, putting limits, putting limits, putting limits, and they're usually hard limits. So I said, actually, I don't like hard limits. No one likes hard limits in blockchain, but nice bonding curves. So I looked at bonding curves for a while, and I was considering how you would do that. So if you look at that, this is basically a sigmoid function over here. It's a standard nice curve, which levels out. And this is a standard logistic curve out of math. They use it for a lot of models for damping. So how about using that? So I basically modified that slightly and made a nice curve like this. I thought it was a pretty nice bonding curve for power. Basically, the slope goes down gently as you go up, and eventually it limits the amount of stake you can. For infinite stake, you still have a limited amount of voting power. It will encourage, then of course, it will limit how much staking would stake because it starts diminishing returns after a while. And the effect of that, if you look at a macro scale, is basically, even if they invest the same stake, it flattens out that curve quite a bit. You see a huge amount of this. The yellow curve is with applying that, rather than having one token, one reward, you apply this bonding curve to the reward function, to your validator power reward function for it, and just doing that levels out this curve significantly. You see this hugely, and so if this is even more steep, it levels it out. And the loss, number they're losing money goes down, and the amount they're losing, this huge amount, goes down quite a bit. So it becomes more sustainable. It's still not perfect, but it levels out a lot of those indiscrepancies. This curve is not, I don't posit the perfect curve. I posit I tried about 10 curves, and I like this one the most. So I'm open to other bonding curves, but I like the idea of the bonding curve between stake tokens and your reward. So that's basically my first approach to this was, let's incentivize smaller ones. Let's distribute it more so you can't just get one-to-one straight line. You get this nice curve to slow down it, so you slow down the reward growth. And I've used it, 5 validators are controlling 60% of the chain, or 50% of the chain. By putting these off there, that dampens the portion of it and expands it to the other ones, the smaller validators. Anyway, and the impact also is more decentralization. So you see this one with straight one token, one vote. This is the percentage of the network controlled by this percentage of the miners. So at this point, you have 20% of the miners. And this is again using a standard 80-20 rule, Pareto distribution curve I used, which is actually a much more decentralized version than Cosmos has, according to but yeah, I got that. I heard this morning that it's not such a good fit. Whatever, I'm using this curve. This is maybe an idealized Cosmos world that everybody's hoping to get for ICF funding distribution, get this one. And already at 20%, we're at 2/3 voting power, which is, Cosmos I think is much less, it's 10, right? I think. And you see, just applying a sigmoid curve to it, suddenly this 60% voting power is coming out around here at 50%. So it pushes out a lot more. So it's more in the decentralized sense of having control of the chain. It's also more decentralized, which is often another topic we were saying about Cosmos. I can't figure my money, and it's too centralized. So applying some bonding curve-like function, which is diminishing returns, with the increased amount up there, can be logarithmic, sigmoidal, as you want to, is my fundamental premise of saying, my first premise, is saying to apply some sort of function on this rather than a one-to-one function. The current function is x, is reward equals x, rather than reward is f of x. F(x) is 1, is x. So that is my first proposition, that this will help. The problem with this is this, Sybil attacks. So there have been various attempts at limiting staking. They were much more coarse proposals in Cosmos usually. Say we limit how much stake can be done to 100,000 tokens, and no one can go over that, for example, right? And hard limits. Then people say, okay, I'll split my $1 million into 10 identities. Here, since the curve is here, it's not quite a limit, and how far you break split it is questionable, because you still make some money putting more tokens on one, and it costs money to run a second validator. But clearly, if my reward is here, I'll probably split into 3 running here, make more money. 3 at this radio, then 1 at the end. So it will encourage the standard Sybil attack, which is been also the other crux of many of the attempts by Cosmos to decentralize the proof of stake algorithm and to figure out some more equitable distribution that favors smaller validators over larger validators, right? There have been a number of ideas. They've all been rejected in civil attacks. Well, the larger validator is going to split his stake into 10. And now what happens is, instead of having 100 validators, some big ones and small, we actually have 100 validators, but it's only really 10 validators. So now we've just kicked out 90% of the validators, and the 10 big validators are running each 10 machines. 10 big companies are running 10 machines each, and that's even more centralized than we're looking for. So if you assume, this is nice if people can game it, and this is the gaming they're going to do. So from this point, I said, what do you need for identity? Which my last talk was on identity. Identity is something non-fungible. It's non-transferable. And by using some sort of identity, you can limit that splitting. You could, for example, say, you have to pass a KYC and have some threshold to be allowed to be validated here. And then you can do a proof of stake in this function, no problem. Now, if Certus1, if Doki Capital says, okay, we want to make 10 of them because we have so much stake, it's more efficient for us to run 10 validators, they have to go through 10 different KYCs, and people have to agree these are 10 individuals and not all fronts for Doki Capital. So some sort of thing there. Then you say, who is certifying this? And then you argue this becomes a POA system at the end. So the first thought was basically a POA gatekeeper to a POS system. But I know that's completely unacceptable. That is not acceptable for public chain, for permissionless chain. After that, then it was, how would you gradually add this stuff? Maybe you don't have a gatekeeper. Maybe you have a gradient function, like another bonding curve. You have a gradient function. And how would you add these things? Non-transferable rights to be a validator, slowly ramp up. Something like your Airbnb or your eBay rating. It takes time to earn them. So if you get Airbnb, maybe people don't want to give you a house, and after a while, it's easy to get a house. It takes time. You can lose them, but it takes time to get in there. I can't make 1,000 accounts on Airbnb, make 1,000 reservations on a bunch of places, and then just cancel them all with no loss. And there's some limits I have there. I can't just civil attack those things. A lot of them use reputation over time. eBay uses that for seller protection. It takes time to build a reputation. If it gets no reputation, it took them months or years to get the reputation, so less likely to just make a bunch of fake accounts and scam it. So this has been some sort of pattern we've seen emerge in the last 10 years, for 20 years, 10 years really, on the web. So some sort of system like that. Anyway, so what I came up with, and my friend, was proof of engagement. Not proof of reputation, not proof of identity, not proof of authority, proof of engagement. So this is a second step beyond stake. So I wanted a gradient function, like I have one bonding curve to limit the stake effect. And they said, well, what's the gatekeeper to doing that? There's another curve, which is engagement. We want to reward validators who are active in securing, maintaining it, and reward them. We also want to reward people active in the chain. That means that people that are building block explorers, they're writing documentation, they're helping users, are active validators. If we get, I don't know, if Frey decides to run stake Atom tokens on behalf of their users and stake a huge stake, we know we're a validator, but doesn't participate in the chain, does not write explorers, does not participate in the chats, is not really helpful in the community. Right now, most of the large validators are helpful in the community. Lots of validators are very helpful in the community. It's a very beautiful community in Cosmos. But there's no thing stopping an exchange is holding a bunch of atoms from staking them and just making a bunch of the validator rewards, or running their chain, and not giving anything back. There's just a social contract you have right now. It's very fragile in a way. So I want to protect it. I don't know if this can be done on Cosmos itself, Hub, probably not. But on other chains running SDK or running Cosmos ecosystem, it may well work. So we want to support engagement, right? So we know what's good. We know what we want from behavior. Everyone is happy when someone posts these stuff on the chats. And most of you guys are probably in Telegram groups and various forums, and you know the people that are very active. And we can know the people in the hackathons, they're building tools. So I can ask a bunch of people here, take a poll, and get a rough idea, actually, of who people are in the ecosystem they think are supporting, very helpful. These are numbers. It's a subjective one, but we take a nice round group of everyone else. We could make some decent numbers, and probably get actually a decent picture of who really is, some objective thing by polling, right? Okay, I'm not saying do polling, but this is We can imagine that. So we can imagine these rewards, they're somehow subjective, but averaged together over many views, we get some relative objective picture. And what are these? There's three key points here I have. One is the non-transferable, they're identity, basically. They're assigned to one identity. You can't give them to me. You can't buy my engagement points. If I'm very helpful in the forums and writing tools, that might help me allow to earn ability to stake my tokens, because that means I prove myself to be someone. I can't sell that to you. I can't sell them all to some big whale. So they should not be transferable. They're not sellable. They're earnable. They have a half-life. If I stop doing something, they decay. It's really rewarding the people that are currently active and engaged in the community. And they provide a bonus to your staking rewards. They're sort of, they are a bonding curve, additional bonding curve, to your staking function. So I'll jump to here. This is kind of what I said is, you can imagine multiple bonding curves, and I took basically and multiplied into the function I showed you before, this one curve, and multiplied the exponent stake times engagement. And when I do that in here, multiply engagement times stake, as the exponent of the sigmoid, you end up with these curves, and basically you don't block it out. So someone that has like 5 engagement points ends up getting this pretty bad curve. So they can stake all they want, they can earn some rewards. And as your engagement goes up, you go up here. So you have less and less to max out. So these are different levels of engagement points, and as your engagement points go up, your curve changes. The shape of your curve changes.
But this is for the actual staking token, not for the engagement point, right?
Yeah, the engagement, no. This is this here is your voting power.
Okay.
And this here is stake.
Okay.
Right, as you stake. And if you stake, actually this number, this is 100,000 here, right? So if you stake up to 1 million or 2 million, I think this actually eventually gets to the same maximum. They're all the same maximum curve. This is a really slow curve. So eventually you stake out maybe 10 million, and this will max out. So this one at 10 million will be the same one as this one at 30,000. So they all get the same reward eventually, but it's a lot more layout for that locking down. And this is the same thing mapped out on different levels of engagement. This is engagement of 5, 25, 100, 300, and 1,000. So I posit 1,000 as a number to give myself a range of what was a reasonable number. And this voting power is basically also relative. It doesn't matter what the number is. It's relative, right? So if one validator has 5 power, another has 10, or one has 5,000, has 10,000, they share the vote. It's the same. They're shares. In both Tendermint and the staking rewards, they're shared out. So this number doesn't really matter. It's a relative number. But you see here that you combine the two of them, and you allow this filter. Right? It's a gentle filter. So as the high stakers are low engaged, and the low stakeholders are highly engaged, can fairly compete. And someone who is a high stake and highly engaged wins, and the low stake, low engaged has no chance at all. So you allow these two axes, and they both allow them to do one. So I do a few things in the ecosystem and have a lot of money, I can buy my way in. I do nothing in the ecosystem, I can't win at all. I do a lot for the ecosystem, I only have little money, I can also have a fair shot here. So it's a way of doing it. I show me out. That is how do you get the engagement rewards? How do you get these things? So the whole question I have, actually this is where I'd like to open a discussion, I'll close it. If you buy this thing, this bonding curve will give a more fair, more decentralized system with better distribution. And you agree that some sort of engagement, which is some sort of global subjective, objective numbers given some global subjective map of everyone's views. Second bonding function, second axes, in order to gatekeep in who can do what to avoid Sybil attacks. That's when we avoid Sybil attacks. If I'm a big stakekeeper and I split in 2 accounts of, and I have 2 accounts with 10 engagement rather than one with 20 engagement, it's not going to make any money, right? It's not going to make money to split. It's not valuable to split because I just move. Rather than here, I'm going to half my value here and also half here, and then it goes way down. So double this is not better than that. So that's what it does. So by doing this, I avoid a Sybil attack. And then you explicitly on-chain encourage certain behavior. The question is, the 3 questions I have are the initial distribution of rewards. So you start off in Genesis file with some active people, maybe for the thing, you start off with good conditions. Should encourage actual representation of who's there. You know this at one point. how you distribute new rewards and how you decay old rewards. Those are the 3 questions. What we want to reward, and the question is who are getting these things? Validators that have high uptime. Core developers building applications. Ecosystem apps, block explorers, wallets, apps built on the product. All these secondary stuff that is useful for us. We want to reward, these are good people. Community builders. They're writing docs, supports, they're making diagrams, they're making stuff out there, they're showing the world what we're doing. Those are great people. Repeat users, people that are using the system a lot. Are those people that are reward? Maybe. Long-term holders. Is that really engagement if I'm just holding the coin? Is that engagement? I don't know. You might want to reward some amount of that because it reduces liquidity, holders, but do you need to explicitly call that engagement?
Some form of engagement.
It's really passive. It's really passive. Do you need to reward the engagement points, or maybe you say, okay, I'll just give you a long-term bond with a 1% interest rate or 2% interest rate, right? Like, it's a question. And speculators, and I'll say no to this one. It doesn't matter if it works for people trying to make a quick buck. You're not involved, right? So if you want to come in and trade the coin, you can trade the coin. I don't care. It's your deal. But you have no engagement. You're not engaged in the system, and you're not ready to stake the system. You can't run the validators. You can trade the platform. You can add liquidity to the system. You can trade all the decks you want to. That's fine. But you're not engaged in the sense that you should not be running validators. You want the people with long-term commitments to the chain to run the validators. And so I posit these are kind of the groups. Maybe there are other groups too, but these are kind of the groups I think. And then you can balance the idea of long-term objective engagement. So you have the people there that have been since day one, these big validators, the app developers, Cosmos Station, or Certus One that built these explorers. But you also need to fresh ideas, the hackathons, bounty programs. Hey guys, these people come, Icarus project comes with the idea to analyze stuff. They should get some points out there, but they're no one. They're not the old termers. So we have to have some balance between these two. And then how we distribute them. So ideally we do everything algorithmic and on-chain and provable, and we can prove high uptime validators, for example. High uptime validators can be proven, and I don't know what else can be proven in terms of engagement, honestly. Who wrote the code? Who deployed apps? What wallet is being used? Maybe you can start tagging send transactions with the wallet that was on it, and then you calculate how many send transactions tagged to this wallet, and this wallet owner then gets engagement points. You could. These are the concepts I've heard. There are secondary ways of doing that, but maybe you can prove a few things based on the ecosystem. Block explorers don't make transactions, so they can't really be proven. So some sort of algorithm of actual on-chain usage, and the other one is governance. And this is then the questions having governance, right? So you have some sort of community fund of these points that is voted on how you distribute them, and maybe distribute it out in hackathons publicly. So we say, okay, there's 50,000 engagement points distributed as hackathon to the winners, as well as atoms or Bitcoin, right? And these ones then are voted, and 1, 2, 3 get these, 4 get these engagement points, and the hackathon is public. So now if always basically, the big whales pet projects keep winning hackathons, they're crap projects, and other people that have cool projects are always losing it, it's very obvious gaming the system. So these are then governance votes on publicly things, so transparency is the only thing there that can really keep it honest. Other transparency, which is governance anyway. In all governance systems in the world, transparency is the only thing that keeps honest. So then, the question's open. There's a huge question here. Who votes for this? Is it all token holders, just the validators, the engagement people, some mix of it, and how you design the system there. But this is really a socio-political system, which depends on every chain that own social contracts. It's not a technical problem at this point. It's really, you can say we offer a governance system to do it with some rules, but to make it work, it requires a social contract to make this work. So I think there's some rules you can put in place to keep, but at the end of it, if you want to allow anything to be subjective and not just control of machines, and any sort of anti-civil, that there is identities. If you want to avoid just pure one token, one vote, and you have no identity, and you're not people, we're only money, which is the only thing is provable on chain, we have to add a subjective thing. We have to add some attestation, identity. And all of that becomes a subjective. This person says I'm this person, and these people say that's a good job I did. And so there are a bunch of subjective facts, but some of the subjective facts can approximate an objective view, depending on how you weight them. So you have to still prove that. Anyway, and then you have to consider the long-term rewards, and that was basically my proposal here. I have a drafted white paper. If you want to reach me, I'm EthanSF on Telegram or Asolito. If you see me in the Slacks in Phoenix, GitHub. So I'm also mainly a developer here on IOV, and Rotweave, another secret framework. So thank you for seeing this talk.
Thank you.
And I'm very open to hear questions. If there are any questions, comments, and feedback on this. Yeah.
So what you did is excellent because actually we are trying to operate Tendermint in a private setting, and we were considering about applying some limitation on the voting power. So exactly right it is. So we're trying to do it, and some stuff like we have in Tendermint the proposer bonus fee.
What do you have?
The proposer bonus fee.
Yeah.
So it seems like it counterbalance a bit the effect of the bounding curve, because the more voting power you have and the more reward you get.
Yeah.
And you're trying to limit as well. So did you write that kind of model, some equation, trying to figure out if this was working actually in practice or some simulation?
I wrote a lot of equations, so I can show you if you want. I wrote
Okay.
basically
Did you consider it or not?
the proposer power.
Yeah, the proposer.
I said
proposer
that-
bonus fee.
No, I didn't want to consider that. I considered basically that you would have rewards in proportion. So the proposer bonus doesn't really matter to me at the point.
Okay.
When I said, I assume right now in Cosmos your rewards are more or less proportionate to, proposer helps in censorship, but your rewards are proportionate to your voting power. Let's assume this, right? So if I have on Tendermint 100 voting power and you have 1,000 voting power, you get 10 times the rewards I get. Fair enough. You will also be proposer 10 times as often. So if we only pay you for the blocks you propose, if we only pay you blocks you propose, or we pay all validators based relative to the power, it worked out roughly the same. The only thing is how it punishes for downtime, right? A proposer bonus power punishes for every block you miss. Whereas I just pay you for the blocks you propose. And the other proposal is if I pay you based on voting power, and if you miss too many blocks, I jail you, otherwise it's the same. I don't get punished, so I can have 90% uptime, 95% uptime or something, and with no punishment. If I drop below that, I get jailed and lose everything, and if I go above it, I'm fine. And that's currently they have. And proposer block power is much more, your rewards are this big, and as you have lower downtime, it goes down like this. So I think it's a, in either case, proposer reward or reward based on voting power work out effectively the same amount. The real difference there is how they handle downtime of the proposer, how they punish for downtime. But it's not a different distribution.
Okay. And do you think it's possible to characterize precisely what is fairness? Because for us, fairness is very subjective.
I put these curves out here because what we've seen here is fairness. There's no fairness in this distribution here, right? This is a distribution curve, parity distribution. There's a common knowledge. Parity distribution curve is basically is it alpha over x? Alpha over x to alpha plus 1, I think. Anyway, the point here is that the ratio goes down. They say 1.16 is the 80-20 rule, but as you go down, it's the 90-10 rule, right? Or the 95-5 rule, or the 1% owning onto the wealth, or how you want to do it. So one number here is basically that curve, if it's that curve, the height for it. But if you've seen this sort of map here, this map, the cumulative power, more centralized. This is typically called a Gini distribution. They have a Gini number on it. It's a typical measure for wealth distribution, inequality in countries. And you end up places like that, often in third world countries, you often end up places that are at 60, 0, 60. 1 is maximum inequality, one guy owns everything, and 0 is everything the same amount of money. The perfect or imperfect communist society, right? And the numbers typically though, they're Europe and America are 0.4, something like that. America's a little higher, Europe's like 0.35 often. Nordic countries are countries on the lowest numbers usually, the most flattest distributions often. But you can take this curve, this distribution curve, and call a number called Gini coefficient, which is a statistical method, and that's usually used to measure inequality. And inequality is normal. Zero number is not ideal. You don't want to have everyone the same because basically there's no difference of what you do. So you want some inequality, but high inequality causes problems. And that's generally shown in society. Often the violence and hunger and social unrest increases with high inequality. So there's kind of enough inequality to cause some sort of friction, but not too much to cause too much tensions. So I would posit, and I don't have a perfect number here, but if you look at numbers of societies you like to emulate, and you say, okay, I think in France or in Sweden they have a nice society, or I think the Congo is a nice number. How they run the societies there is much more egalitarian. I pick those Gini coefficients as maybe a target I would go for, both in validator power and wealth distribution in general. The wealth distribution in general is harder because you can split multiple accounts, but the validator power is much more, is much nicer to characterize. You can characterize. You have a limited number of set, and you can measure this, and you map it, and you can calculate it. So, someone told me it's 0.71 for Cosmos, the Gini coefficient. So it's worse than it is in basically, I think, any country in the world. I think there's no country in the world where the wealth is as unevenly divided as the validator powers in Cosmos. So that's just to tell you. I think we have bad. We can do better.
When you were speaking about distributing these engagement points to developers or something, did you look into what Oscoin is doing?
I like those kind. I really like them. So I mean, I sat with them for a while when they worked in this office. So I think it's a cool model. It would be actually a very nice complementary model. They build a whole web. What they do is basically a web of trust. They use PageRank models on this. If everyone else does not know them, basically they rank open source project. They want to reward open source projects.
But they also reward engagement, like some form of engagement, developers, pull request reviews, and all this.
Yeah, exactly. So they basically they manage products and projects and people, and the people that contribute to projects have a ranking in them. The projects that rely on other projects, dependency graphs, and then especially people that talk about multiple projects or projects that import multiple ones, and then they have an importance number, which is like how important people say. It's like every might import left pad. Project might import everything as dependency, everything, but it's really a pointless utility, so it shouldn't be more highly ranked than Postgres or React. So anyway, they have different algorithms on it. They do network graph, so basically they want to say clusters of ones aren't valuable, so you can't game it like this. I think Jay mentioned this in the talk earlier, and I think it's an interesting approach. You could do a OS coin ranking of all projects related directly to this ecosystem. So not all projects, but all Cosmos ecosystem-based projects, they're tied together. So that would be actually an interesting way of doing that, some algorithmic stuff. That would require a lot of extra stuff, and you probably need a separate chain to run that, or an oracle to run this. And you say, okay, we have an off-chain oracle that does a PageRank algorithm for all Cosmos-based projects and gives them numbers, and then use as an oracle on the chain. Because to implement OS coin on Cosmos Hub just for the purpose of distributing power and not as your main product is overkill. It's a main product. It's a very complicated product. It's a main product. But I would not run it on a hub just to determine how we distribute the new points. But using OS coin chain or using another oracle to prove into it and maybe have it as IBC to them is a very nice idea. To prove, here's your page rank here relative to other projects, and you can use it to prove and claim engagement points on here, which would be a very nice addition.
Yeah, maybe that's something for the not.
I mean, I think, Alexei is very like IBC, and so, I mean, they would, with some help and encouragement, IBC is live. I'm sure it would be too hard to get OS coin to get IBC. So, other questions? Cool. You mentioned the thing about you're starting a new chain, and I'm actually very curious too, because we're launching our chain also, IOV. And the issue we had, they ended up going for proof of authority as a governance model to bootstrap it. And I don't like it. I didn't like proof of stake either. So this is kind of inspired my look for some other curves to run it, because I think proof of stake does not work for small chains. It's too fragile. And also, I mean, the point is, if your market cap is 10 million, and a few are staked, and maybe 20% staked there, and you don't have an engaged community, and any whale can pump and dump the price of yours, like this, you get a price crash, someone triggers, they buy your tokens up cheap, they own your chain. Then they own the validator, they can disrupt your chain at all. So your security is not, you're not highly secure proof of stake, you're highly insecure. Proof of stake is highly secure with a high market cap, with a lot of holders, engaged community. And with those points, which are very valuable points to have, is very secure. And Cosmos is very secure. It's not very fair in Cosmos, but it's very secure. The small chain is not even secure.
I think should we have
Overtime?
a 5-minute break till the next one?